Welcome back, everyone. We're 20 minutes after the hour. New information this morning involving that deadly commuter airplane crash in Alaska. Authorities have recovered and identified the remains of all 10 who were aboard the flight when it went down over a frozen Bering Sea off the western coast of the state. All 10 were from Alaska. The passengers ranged in age from the 34-year-old pilot to a 58-year-old passenger. Investigators still working to identify the cause. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the NTSB saying major pieces of that American Eagle regional jetliner and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter have been removed from the Potomac River. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration also joining the search for remaining debris. Much of the investigation is focused on the helicopter and whether the pilot was flying with a vital safety system turned off. Our next guest is a decorated Navy Top Gun graduate, FA-18 fighter pilot, and the founder of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, Matthew Wiz Buckley. Wiz, good morning. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, Hena. Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with that Alaska flight that killed 10 people, one of the deadliest crashes in Alaska in 25 years. Coast Guard released a photo, and I just want to explain this to our viewers about the rescue efforts. You see the wreckage of the plane? It was literally resting on ice and snow, potentially moving as the rescue was going on or as recovery efforts were going on. Wiz, from your experience, how difficult will it be for investigators to piece together a scene like this when debris is literally scattered over drifting ice?
Yeah, the wreckage is drifting at about 5 knots, and that's pretty incredible. I've never seen that before. This is going to be a tough one, Hena. The Cessna Caravan with Bering Air did not have a black box or a cockpit voice recorder, so they're going to have to piece together exactly what happened. It's going to be tough. I've been involved in several aircraft mishap investigations, and you start at the top, and it's like a funnel. You get to the bottom. Was it weather? Obviously, this isn't Florida, right? This is Alaska. There are some pretty tough flying conditions. Was it icing? Did a passenger go crazy? Was there a mayday call? It doesn't sound like, from all the reports I've read, that the pilot made any sort of distress call. So this one's tough. It's also such a
apologies. It's also such a remote part of Alaska. Could that hamper the investigation further?
You'd be surprised with the Coast Guard, Air National Guard, Air Force rescue crews out there. They can get them on those ice floes, and as long as it doesn't just keep drifting forever, they're gonna figure this stuff out. But they'll most likely lift that wreckage as soon as possible, get it in a hangar, and start piecing it together.
Let's move on to another fatal crash, that devastating collision in D.C. that left 67 people dead. All the major pieces of wreckage have been recovered. Investigators say they will be looking for something called witness marks. Wiz, what is that, and how could it help us understand just what went wrong in the air last month?
Well, those would be impact marks, right? Anytime there's a mid-air collision, the investigation team wants to actually see where each aircraft struck each other. It sounds like from the cockpit voice recorders, sadly, the RJ crew had an audible gasp or an audible reaction at the last second, and they actually pulled back on the control yoke to try and miss that other aircraft. But this is a mishap that sometimes we call these mishaps moto, master of the obvious. You're not supposed to hit anything, right? So there's 3 strikes in this mishap. The first one, Pat 25, the Army helo, was supposed to be hugging the eastern shore of the Potomac.
Okay.
They weren't. They were in the middle. The second strike is, if you're on that route, Route 4, you have to stay below 200 feet. The last radar print of the RJ was about 325 feet plus or minus 25 feet. So off altitude, off course. And the third strike, sadly, is the controller. I didn't go to air traffic control school, but I guarantee you on day one, they tell you, if you have 2 targets on your scope moving towards each other at the same altitude, doesn't matter if one of the guys said, hey, I have that traffic in sight, you give them what we call a sugar call. Hey, Pat 25, confirm traffic in sight, left 11, a half a mile. That would have woke the Army crew up like, oh my God, that isn't the traffic we thought we had in sight. And we're taking evasive action. So this one, I'm sad to say, is pretty obvious.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.